Wednesday this evening with you folks. We're going to talk about 7 mistakes you can't afford to make. And you know, I was driving here and I'm often trying to think about like what's a good introduction to this, and it suddenly reminded me in my early 20s I made one of those cross-country trips, you know, where you often venture out and you take several weeks to travel across the country. And so, I don't know, it was like in first week, maybe about the 4th or 5th day, and we're traveling through Tennessee. And we end up kind of getting lost, so I stopped at this little gas station, and I asked this fellow there at the gas station, I said, you know, here's where we want to go. We want to get back to interstate such and such. And he just kind of paused, and he looks at me, and he goes, well, he says, you ain't going to get there going that way. And so, you know, I said, okay. So I guess we turn around and go this way, and he goes, nope, you ain't going to get there going that way. Now, there were only 2 options, so I became a little bit concerned. And he said to me, he says, you know, you're just a long ways from where you want to be. Well, I hope you guys don't have that experience tonight. In other words, as I'm talking about the 7 mistakes that you can't afford to make, I also want to give you a sense of which way you need to go in order to stay away from those mistakes. But sometimes when I'm doing this presentation, folks kind of raise that issue up front, or I'll get an email or two like, well, you're going to talk about what you do instead. And of course, that's the goal here. I want to make sure that you guys have a clear sense that if these are the mistakes, here's what you do to avoid that, and here's what you can do instead. A couple months ago, I was driving home and going down the driveway through the subdivision, you know, and squirrels were out in the road, and so I'm going along, and usually they get out of my way, of course, but there's this one squirrel that kind of is sitting there in the middle of the road, and he sees me coming, and it's a little too late for me to stop. And so he sees me, and then he goes one way, then he goes the other way, and then he goes the other way, and I don't have time to hit my brakes, and I'm running over him, and I'm just waiting for that thump, but there's no thump. So I'm thinking, lucky squirrel, right? Well, this is kind of the way we learn sometimes. We will end up in a problem situation. We move one way. We'll try this. We try that. We try this. This, right? And then we sneak out just by a hair. We get out of it, and then we think, we could be like the squirrel. We could think, this is the solution when I'm in a life-threatening situation, right? I dart one way. I dart the other way. I dart back and forth a couple times, and then that's the way out. Well, that strategy works sometimes. You know, we often see these dead squirrels sitting around. So hopefully, as we're talking about this tonight, that I give you a sense of how it is you stay away from that kind of decision-making strategy. Meaning, here's life coming at you, and you don't know what to do, so you try this one. Well, I heard somebody tried this. I heard that somebody did this. I wonder if this will work. And you try different things. And what happens is, sometimes people get lucky. So your neighbor might be saying, you know, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and it really worked. Well, there are certain rules of behavior. There are certain laws, certain principles that will predictably and reliably influence your kids' behavior. And so I want to give you a sense of what those rules and principles are. And I want to do that by talking about the key mistakes that I see parents make along the way. The first mistake that is often made is one that's really fairly common, and it looks something like this. Let's imagine for a moment that John is sitting over here and he's watching TV, and it's time for dinner, and I'm saying to John, I'm putting dinner on the table, and I'm saying, John, sweetheart, it's time for dinner, please cut off the TV. And then a few minutes later, John's still sitting there watching TV, right? So I say, John, please cut off the TV, sweetheart. A few minutes later, things are on the table. John's still sitting there. I'm going, John, come on, cut off the TV. And I come back in, sitting down. John's still in front of the TV. Any of you have John in your house? Yeah? Okay. So John's still sitting in front of the TV, so what do? I go in, and now I'm really upset. So I'm going, John, what is your problem? You know, every day I do this. Why is it every single day we have to do this? I am so tired of yelling at you about cutting off the TV. Now just cut off the TV. So I come in, I work myself up in a sweat, right? You know? John's still sitting in front of the TV. Oh, I'm furious, right? So now I come in and I really lay into John. I'm just like spits flying, my face is red. John's sitting there looking shell-shocked, and eventually the TV gets turned off and he comes to dinner. And of course, we've got a nice, pleasant mood set for the dinner table, right? So, what I'm really asking of John is, I'm saying to him something like this. I'm saying, sweetheart, what I want you to do is I want you to stop doing what you want to do and do what I want you to do, right? That's basically the message. John is engaged in watching a program he enjoys. He doesn't really want to come to dinner. So I'm saying, accept this fact that you're not getting what you want, John, and just do what I'm asking you to do, right? I'm asking John to accept reality. Reality is you can't always get what you want. But look at me. What am I doing? Am I getting what I want from John? No. So when I don't get what I want from John, what do? Scream, yell, throw a tantrum, right? So here I am, I'm modeling for John that when I don't get what I want, I give myself permission to scream and yell and spit in your face, right? Now, how is John not going to get this as he grows up? How is he not going to get that when he doesn't get what he wants in life, that the solution is to scream and yell and come back relentlessly, getting louder each time, right? Because that's what I did. I went from soft to medium to loud to extra loud. And so the first mistake that we make is that we think that we're going to control the home. We think we're going to control John, and we haven't learned to control ourselves. Now, I gave you an example of kind of working my way up gradually. Now, some of you may know someone, not any of you, of course. Some of you may know someone who can go from here to here very rapidly. So you ask once, and by the second time, they're screaming and yelling at John because they've been doing this 427 days before. Every day, John is sitting there, and they're sitting themselves there going, I know that boy is not going to come to the table, and so I'm ready. And so I explode. So the problem here is this, that there's not a single parenting book. There's not a psychologist. There's nobody that you can take John to, that if I model for John as he's growing up, that this is the way that I'm going to parent, that my solution to him not listening is to yell and scream and lose my temper. I'm sunk. There's nothing I can do because I've taught John the formula. You guys already know that your words are cheap compared to your action, right? I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. So if my action is that I keep doing this over and over and over, I won't be able to escape this. In other words, you'll see on your outline there, one of the points that I make is that you cannot escape what you model. There's just no way around it. And so that's the first mistake, is that we model the very behavior we don't want and expect to get the behavior we do want. We expect John to respond by listening when he's not getting what he wants, and here I am throwing a fit when I don't get what I want. There's no way around this. Does that make sense? So the key here is to make sure that we model what we want John to be able to do. We want to model that when we don't get what we want, we can keep our calm. By the way, you guys all know this as well, it's so easy to keep your calm when things are going well, right? If you got perfect kids, and I have parents who come and say this to me, they'll say, if I had better kids, I'd just be a better parent. And it's so true, right? If John would just come and come to the table when I ask him, I wouldn't have to yell and scream and look like an idiot, right? So the key here is that it doesn't really work that way, though. I have to lead. I have to show by example. I have to be the model for John about how to do this. Now, granted, if I don't have any tools in my parenting toolbox for how to teach John to cut off the TV when I ask him the first time, then I'm going to feel kind of frustrated. So the goal here, though, as a first step, is to make sure I've got control here first. Because I will guarantee you, if you have a home that feels chaotic and out of control, if it really feels like things are desperate, the first thing that you have to do is just stop all the yelling and demanding. First thing that you do. And you'll find not everything will get better. Let's not pretend. But it will get better just by you modeling different behavior and showing John that you aren't going to lose your cool. So the first mistake is we cannot engage in the behavior we don't want and expect to get the behavior we do want. Makes sense, right? let's imagine I'm going to take John for a walk in the woods, right? And this is a metaphor for life, because as you guys have John at different ages, right? And if we're going for a walk, and this is a metaphor, this walk in the woods is a metaphor for life, I'm going to pick a path for John to walk that's right for his age. I'm not going to make it too difficult, but I'm going to make it a little bit challenging for John. So as we're walking down this path, John happens to be the kind of child that is very distracted. He gets interested in a lot of things, and he doesn't necessarily listen to me very well. So as we're walking along, I'm looking, there's a gully where the path is washed down a little bit. And I say, John, sweetheart, be careful. Don't try to jump that, because if you do, you might trip and fall, and I don't want you to get hurt. So John's going along, and he just isn't really paying attention. He kind of reaches over this gully. Of course, he doesn't quite make it. John's going down, and I see him going down. So here I go sprinting, right? I catch John when he's about this close to the ground, and I say, John, sweetheart, here, let's talk about this. You got to listen to me, sweetheart. You got to pay attention. My job is to protect you. So if you'll listen to me, you'll stay safe. But if you don't listen, you're going to get hurt. So pay attention. So off we go down the path, right? We keep walking, and then there's a tree limb that's fallen across the path. I say, John, be careful on that tree limb, right? So John goes up. He hears something down in the woods. He's just walking along, not paying any attention. Stumbles across the tree limb, right? Down goes John. Here I go sprinting as hard as I can, and I catch John again right before he hits the ground, and I give him another good talk. I say, John, buddy, you got to pay attention. If you don't listen, you're going to get hurt. My job, protect you. Listen to Dad, you'll be safe, right? Off we go. We come across a stream, some wet rocks, some dry rocks. I say to John, of course, put your feet on the dry rocks. Otherwise, you hit the wet rocks, what's going to happen? You're going to slip and fall. So John gets up to the stream. He's not paying much attention, or he doesn't believe me. Who knows? But he puts his feet on the wet rock,